Hello and welcome to Act 2. My name's Solsti and I'll be running you through the Trial by Felfire Act 2, and that includes all 4 bosses. The first boss that we'll be coming up against is Canrathad Prime. His hero power reads 10 mana, destroy 4 mana crystals, and summon 3 friendly demons that died this game. Important to remember as well that because of the way that the hero power is lit up, it means that every time that Canrathad gets to 10 mana, he will cast this ability. We have a slight variant deck from the first act. This deck is primarily a rogue/hunter secret deck. It has a lot of secrets. It also has some stealths weaved in. The hero power has remained the same from the first act, which is 2 mana and discover a spell from your discover a card, from your deck, not a spell. So this could be anything, although predominantly it's quite a spell-heavy deck with all the secrets. As you can see here, as I've just highlighted, we've got the addition of the Emerald Spellstone in this deck as well. So Canrathad's deck is primarily built up of a demon/mech hybrid. Because of this, there are often quite a lot of downsides to demons. So what I tend to do is not allow them to stay on board. Whereas when it comes to mechs, there's often a lot of death rattles. As you've just seen there, there's a card that is quite nasty in this encounter. It's a 5 mana spell called Endless Legion, and it summons minions directly from the opponent's deck into the battlefield. You'll notice here I made a very silly mistake, which is to play tempo in this matchup. Make sure you do not play tempo in this matchup, and I will show you why exactly now. As you see here, there is another Endless Legion that gets played, and then unfortunately there is a new outcast which appears in this act. Her ability, though, when she hits the board, is actually to play Vanish, which means that your entire board is going to be removed, including the opponents, of course. But what this means is, quite annoyingly, if you're playing tempo, that you could fall quite far behind. In this case, I just end up replaying my wolves, and I sort of move on to quite a quick victory by the end. But that's the only sort of thing to be aware of in this encounter, is don't play tempo too early on, save your removal. As you can see here, we're at the end of the video. There's not really a lot. They don't have that many powerful demons. What I would suggest you do is continue to keep bouncing them back, and to keep building up pressure on board, and eventually the sort of fight becomes it pretty much runs itself. You're just continuously getting good draws, and then you're just hitting face where you can. So without further ado, let's just jump straight on to the second boss. Moving swiftly on to the second boss, then, we have Burgak Cruelchain, and his hero power reads that when any mech dies, give each character a spare part. I know it's been quite a while since spare parts from the game, so I'll remind anyone who either didn't play then or can't remember. Spare parts, there's 3 or 4 different spare parts. There is a time turner which returns a minion to its owner's hand. There is a crystal that allows a minion to become stealth. There's also one that allows a minion to be taunted, and one other that increases the defense, I believe, of a minion by +1. This is very similar to the solo adventure previously, where if anyone remembers, it was a dragon escape, and you have to last for a certain amount of turns. This is very similar in that effect. It's sort of out of your hands. You're not attacking the enemy enemy champion. What you're trying to do here is you're just trying to maintain board control. And the way you do so is obviously through the spells abilities you have. And then what you have to do is cast 12 spare parts in order to complete this boss. This boss, I would say, is the easiest boss in the second section. Canrathad could possibly be a bit tricky if you didn't get the removal. And the last 2 bosses are actually quite tactical. This boss is simply just about clearing the minions that are put in front of you, making sure that you play the spare parts as and when they come into your hand. There's not a lot of difficulty to this boss. The only thing I would say to be very careful of is letting a large minion on board get stealthed. Now, obviously, this is something you can't prevent, because obviously there are mechs that can come down quite cheaply, and also stealthing only costs 1 mana with a spare part, and this guy is solely out to kill you. There are opportunities he has where he has minions that might do some damage to other minions on board, but primarily if he builds a large minion, he is going to be out to kill you and out to end the game as soon as possible. He's obviously trying to prevent you from being able to spend the 12 spare parts necessary to complete the task. So we jump right to the end here. You'll notice here that I'm just killing off all these scrap bots that have come out. He developed a large minion and stealthed it, and then put 3 different buffs on it. And then obviously what happened is I managed to kill that off, and from there I then got all the spare parts necessary. And as you can see there, after spending 12, it completes the encounter. So that's a very simple encounter, and without further ado, let's move on to what I think is possibly the most fun encounter of solo adventures for a long time, which is the Felfire run. Would it be a walkthrough unless one of these bosses was difficult or challenging? No, I don't think it would be a very effective walkthrough. So thankfully, there is some challenge in the Act 2, and this is known as the Felfire run. So straight out the gate, the enemy's hero power is angry minions are falling out of the Felfire. As I said in the previous fight, and then also as I compared to the previous dragon encounter that we had in the last solo adventure, this is all about making sure that we survive the turns. So it's very tactical, this fight, and we've got some new cards that have been introduced. So we play as the adventurers on a siege machine, and we have a hero power that deals 1 damage for each card in our hand. Now, the interesting part about this is I don't think the hero power is worded correctly. The hero power specifically states that it will deal 1 damage per card, but it doesn't say directly to only enemies. Now, this does only deal damage to enemies, this hero power. So even if you've got a full board of minions, it will only specifically damage the hero power. So in terms of the cards that are available to us, we have one that delays the turn to escape by 2, but then draws 3 cards. We have a card that restores 5 health to our hero and gains 5 armor. We have another card that blasts an enemy minion for 8 damage and then steals another. And then we have a minion and a card that does 2 damage to all enemy minions. You'll notice here that I got very lucky with that attack, and it stole the 7/5 and then took and killed the 5/8, which obviously is very beneficial. And actually in this run I did get quite lucky on a couple of these kills, to the point where I do think it's very easy to fail this. I think unless you understand the cards, the tactic has to be that you maintain as many cards in your hand for the first 4 or 5 turns. I would suggest delaying your escape as much as you can with the cards available and filling up your hand and making sure you just hit that hero power for at least the first 4 or 5 turns, because the resources are limited. You only have a certain amount of draw cards in your deck, and as you can see there's a lot of pressure that piles on very quickly here. We've got 7/7s with Death Rattle 7/7 Spawn coming out, but this fight is incredibly fun. It's absolutely something that I think is well built, and I think it's something the designers took a long time to think about. You can see here I'm just sort of clearing down my options to minimise the damage that I'll probably receive. I managed to kill the 7/7. Unfortunately, in this case, I possibly got the worst one, which is the 9/1. But as you can see, the pressure stays on, and all I'm ever trying to do here is to weave in damage between trying to escape. So what I'm trying to do here is, and that was again a very lucky shot, I managed to kill the one without Death Rattle and then steal the one with Death Rattle. What we're always trying to do here is to maintain on top of the board as much as we can by escape, and then sort of get ourselves to escaping as quickly as possible. As you can see, I'm actively drawing as aggressively as I can during this fight. It is not a fight where you want to be behind on cards, and it's a fight where the hero power absolutely carries you. So as you can see, I'm now starting to use the turbo boost, which reduces the amount of turns until escape, which obviously get put up by the ability to draw 3 cards in the first place. So this takes out the minions. I got very lucky again there without hitting anything that I wanted it to, but then I managed to get a steal. And I could easily have destroyed the minion off here, but I decided I want to push further towards sort of escaping. As you can see, I've got 3 turns left here, and then I've got another escape. So I've planned it all out quite well. I got a couple of very lucky hits with my deal 8 damage, steal a minion, but there we go, and that's it. You managed to clear through it quite quickly. I assume that people will probably fail this from using resources too early on, and I think the hero power is quite poorly worded. It should read that you only deal damage to enemies, which was a bit of confusion for me, but I tried it out, and that's exactly how it worked. So that's it for boss 3, and here we go on to boss 4, which is the final boss of Act 2. So, on to the final boss of Act 2, which is Mother Sharaz. The Mother Sharaz hero power is quite interesting. It says the first time you're damaged each turn, prevent the damage and then counterattack. So we're back now onto the main deck, which we've been going through the Acts 1 and Act 2 with so far. We have the Rogue/Hunter hybrid deck with the secret package and a bit of stealth rolled in there as well. Hero power remains the same. There is quite a new minion there. The Wrathscale Naga, which is the 3/1, which deals 3 damage to any enemy when a friendly minion dies. Again, it's more of a tempo fight. Because of the way that the enemy's hero power works, it actually is quite counterintuitive to be aggressive. You'll notice here that Sharaz attacks my minion, and then instead of taking the damage back from my minion, deals the damage back to my minion itself. So from a 1 mana attack, effectively she dealt 4 damage to the minion. So just be very careful. It could be quite snowbally if she gets weapons and you don't have anything to counter back with. I've skipped to the end here because really this fight runs its own course after a short while. You've got your outcasts. I would dig for them as aggressively as you can do. They are very useful. And here I get an unstable evolution, which is sort of going to carry me through to the finish of this game. I'm very lucky here to get an Antonidas, which I can then use. As you noticed at the start of this turn, I managed to proc the counter-attack from the enemy. And now I've got the Antonidas. I've got the board control. There's not really going to be a lot of competition. And the Shivara falls just short here, clearing my Antonidas, which effectively is game. So yeah, I'll use the fireballs for clearing. I didn't want to attack here because the counter-attack would kill my Antonidas. So I just took the 6 to face instead. Of all the fights, I would say you've got quite a mixture in this Act 2. It's definitely a step up in difficulty from Act 1. There's a lot more thinking that goes into these fights. There's a lot more sort of pre-fight knowledge that's kind of expected. I would say that the Bergerac Crawl Chain with the spare parts is the easiest fight, followed by Canrathad, and then followed by this fight, Mother Sharaz, with Fellstorm Run being the most difficult. I think you could very easily get lost in Fellstorm Run, and there is a sort of underlying knowledge required of the game of the sort of mechanics to beat it. But yeah, that's it. That's the roundup for Act 2. I've been Solsti. Thank you very much, and I'll see you in the next video.